Hey folks, getting ready to get on the water here in Atlanta on Peachtree Creek. I'll be on the water today with two leaders from an organization called Georgia Rivers. So Georgia Rivers is doing some really important work here in Georgia to make sure that everyone has rights of passage, which means that if you can get into the water, you're allowed to be there. So right of passage really is going to become a much more important concept for people to understand, not just here in Georgia, but nationwide. I think we're all under the assumption of, hey, if we can manage to get to the water without trespassing, we're allowed to be there. And here and there, that's being challenged. People looking at it in terms of, I own the bottom of the river, or however they frame it. There are people that are antagonistic for the public being on water adjacent to the land that they own. So I'll be interviewing Rena Peck. She is the executive director for Georgia Rivers, and she's going to tell us a little bit about Anglers for Georgia, which is an upcoming initiative for Georgia Rivers to really more fully engage and do work on behalf of the anglers on Georgia Rivers. We're also going to talk with Durrell Smith. He's a board member for Georgia Rivers, and he's going to tell us quite a bit about the Freedom to Float initiative, which takes this right of passage issue head on. So please keep watching all the way to the end so that you, whether you're a paddler, a hunter, an angler, anyone that likes to use the rivers here in Georgia, really knows how you can do your part to help keep public waters public. Hey Rena, Durrell, let's stop for a minute.
Sure.
Rena, if you could just tell us a little bit about where we are right now.
Yeah, we're on Peachtree Creek coming into the Chattahoochee. It's called Standing Peachtree Green Space. It's part of Chattahoochee River lands, 100 miles of river that has public access that didn't have access like that before. And we have been down this area before on our Paddle Georgia trips. We'll have a lot of fun on our paddle camp adventure later in the spring. And this is a creek that I grew up on, Peachtree Creek. I had a tire swing into the creek, would fish in the creek, walk up and down the creek, tube in the creek. So it's fun for me now that I'm 56 years old to be back in the creek just like I was when I was 6 years old. So I'm so excited that we've got our Georgia River Guide app here. It's a QR code. You scan and download the Georgia River Guide, which is a guide to all our water trails. Got the moose like Dad.
Probably. Up through here? Definitely.
Where two rivers come together.
Yeah.
So Rena, in terms of the Freedom to Float initiative, what struggles have we had in the political arena surrounding that issue, the rights of passage, and
right.
Give me some insight on what Georgia Rivers has already done.
Right. Well, Georgia Rivers has hired a lawyer and a lobbyist to make sure that we are within the law with what we say. And what we are holding to is that we have had the right to boat, the freedom to float, since before statehood. That has always been a right, and we don't want that right taken away. There's been some confusion around the 1863 Navigable Rivers Act, where some people interpreted it as if it's not a navigable stream, then it could be considered private, and that's not true. If you can float a river, you can boat a river. It was decreed that there's three types of rivers. One that's privately owned, and that's the kind that you can't paddle. One that you can paddle has water in it, and that is open and passable for all public. And then the third is what they call so poetically arms of the sea. So those are the coastal rivers that come in that certainly are also open to passage.
Let's go back to the concept of there are rivers that are private. You said that earlier, and I don't know. I that just seems so foreign to me, and I feel like that's what we're trying to fight here. That we should all be able to be on any flowing water. If we can get there legally,
right,
without trespassing, we should be able to be there. Is
right.
that not
right
the core
right.
of freedom to float?
Right. If you have got public access to get in and get out safely, and you've got the water running, then you've got the legal right to boat it. There are some, what are called in that law, private rivers, and those are ones that really don't have water. You really can't boat them in the first place. So say someone owns thousands and thousands of acres and they've got an intermittent stream, that's not considered a passable river.
Okay, that does firm things up. So if in high water you can get through there, you can paddle through, but in normal flow or low flow, or just the rest of the year that we haven't had just a massive rain event, that you can't get through there, those are considered private. But the idea is, if you can float it, you can boat it.
If you've got public access.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, the scare is that some people are assuming that if it's not deemed a quote navigable stream, capital N, then it's private and they can block it. They can say no canoeing, no fishing, etc. And they do not have a legal right to do that. Last session did a brave thing. He tried to figure out what's navigable and what's not, and came up with a list that, of course, streams that should be on that list are left off. Some streams that are on it didn't really need to be on it. So that caused a lot of concern, and a study committee was created to look at what navigable streams are and other matters. And they came up with the recommendation that we do not need any kind of legislation that creates a list like that. So we are pleased with our advocacy around that, and the legislators having learned so much and delved into the law and what's best for their constituents.
So Rena, where do you think this idea that someone can own a river comes from?
I think it dates back to medieval times. It dates back to across the pond, and the United States of America is not about that. We're about freedom for all. It's a viable stream where you can float a boat. You do have the right to boat through it if you've got public access.
Hey guys, I am Durrell Smith, current board member of the Georgia River Network, and one half of the founding of Minority Outdoor Alliance, and I serve as the president there. Out here, native Atlantan, I'm excited to be on a Georgia river, local to home, and excited to support the river access, and again, go on and download our app as well for more access, and looking forward to staying legal.
So talk to me a little bit about Freedom to Float. What is that about?
So the Freedom to Float campaign is a campaign to make sure that we not only create and acknowledge access that all Georgia citizens and really anyone visiting Georgia have to all rivers here in and out of the city of Atlanta in the state of Georgia, but also we want to be sure that we are creating through the campaign a more diverse initiative to make sure that everyone here of all creeds and backgrounds have access and awareness of the rivers that they live around.
A little bit about your podcast.
So I run a podcast, the Sporting Life Notebook podcast, and my goal with every episode is not only to share the stories of sportsmen and sportswomen doing dynamic things in the outdoors, sharing very unlikely stories of people like myself that have made a way for themselves on land and in water, as well as highlight the various conservation initiatives and activities that I'm engaged in.
So speaking beyond just rites of passage, we also have separate rights for hunting and fishing.
Anglers and hunters can educate themselves on the rights that we have in the outdoors, rite of passage, land and water access rules, and so on and so forth, contacting your local Department of Natural Resources. They are a great starting point. Getting in contact with outdoor leadership, folks in various organizations that are using the same resources that we are, and also becoming a member, of your local, outdoor resource nonprofit, so on and so forth, to get further insights. And that was the way that I started, and that's the way that I encourage other people to do so as well.
What other organizations are you involved in?
So other organizations, the Athens Land Trust, Appalachian Trail Conservancy, Trout Unlimited, Quail and Pheasants Forever, as well as, of course, Minority Outdoor Alliance, to which we run.
So Rena's curious about my inflatable here. So this is an Innovative Sportsman Kestrel. It's a designed for whitewater. So we got the thigh straps, and we can adjust those if needed. Take it for a spin.
Feels good. I like it. It's nice to be up so high.
So this year you have a new initiative within Georgia Rivers. Tell me about it.
Anglers for Georgia Rivers.
Okay.
So Georgia Rivers, we work to protect rivers around the state for everyone, for anglers, for paddlers, for artists, for tubers, for kids that just want to go off a rope swing like me. And our community has been largely based around paddling because of our highly successful Paddle Georgia program. We've got the largest paddle camp adventure in the nation in Georgia every year on a different Georgia river. So that has been our big brand, in a way you could say, and we'll be building out a new program called Anglers for Georgia Rivers, because we want to help anglers have their freedom to float. So I love to fish, and several people on my board are anglers. And during our strategic planning just a couple months ago, one of them said, why don't we bring more of the angler community in? Let's do it. We need to be talking off the same page with other groups that revolve around fishing. So we thought that was a great idea and have room in the budget to try it out. So I believe it'll be a big success. We'll be bringing in more people into our fold to protect Georgia rivers and our water trails for fishing and paddling. Georgia thrives on outdoor recreation. We're in a wonderful position with our river recreation, Riverlands right here on the Chattahoochee, right here at Peachtree Creek, to bring more people to Georgia. And if we make it where someone doesn't feel safe on our rivers because they're not sure whether they've got the freedom to float, then we lose that river recreation economy. We lose it to Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, who all have rite of passage in their law. Yeah, I would say the best thing to do as an angler is plug into Georgia Rivers social media. We've got an action alert right now where you can contact your legislator, and they need to hear from you. They need to hear from all of us, from the whitewater paddler to the bass fisherman to the trout angler. We need to be contacting our legislators. We only have 3 months. The session starts January 13th, and we need to make our voice heard so that the legislators enshrine our rite of passage on Georgia's rivers and streams forever.